Hello everyone, and thank you for attending this Belzona Solve It session webinar discussing long-lasting marine maintenance made simple. You have two Toms taking care of today's presentation. I'm Tom Belli from our marketing department.
And I'm Tom Martin from the global support team.
So hopefully that just makes directing your questions to us a little bit easier. So what will be on the agenda for today's session? We're going to break it into the sections that you can see on screen, and that'll be throughout a 20-minute presentation, and then we're going to have a 10-minute Q&A session at the end. So we'll address any of those questions that you've raised during this webinar. And just as a quick reminder, you can ask these questions in the comments section, which some of you have already been typing in, or you can send one privately to the presenters, which you can find at the top of your screen. So, first of all, one of the easiest ways to categorize the type of maintenance needed is by its location, either out at sea or in dry dock. Of course, each of these areas have their own separate characteristics. At sea repairs tend to be smaller in scale and, due to being at sea, are more than likely to be an emergency. Perhaps a leak that has sprung up out of nowhere and just needs fixing immediately. So as a result, any at-sea maintenance needs to be done in situ quickly. This way, the ship or vessel can get back on its way as quickly as possible. The complete opposite of this is dry dock maintenance. Typically, this involves larger applications, quite often beneath the waterline. For example, it could be related to propulsion and steering equipment, impossible to access anywhere other than in dry dock. So this means that the issues are more severe and a maintenance period can be planned around such complex requirements. So first of all, I'm going to pass you over to Tom, who's going to look at at-sea maintenance in just a little bit more detail.
Okay, thank you. So conditions whilst floating around on the water are conducive to two main issues, corrosion and erosion. Fixing problems that arise from these issues normally means a temporary repair until getting back to the port. As we mentioned on the previous slide, at-sea applications are limited in a number of ways, with ease of use being a fundamental part of any repair method. Access to specialist equipment is limited or sometimes not available at all, so all materials and methods have to be adaptable based on the application conditions. This could be the adverse weather or a presence of oily and wet substrates. Either way, the tools need to match the requirements. Belzona's solutions for at-sea maintenance are crucially easy to use, fast curing and surface tolerant, overall helping to facilitate a fast return to service. The 1000 and the 9000 series range of Belzona materials meet this criteria and are ideal for leak sealing, patch repair, as well as shaft and keyway rebuilding. So let's take a look at a few examples of this in action. So one common application, as previously mentioned, is rebuilding and repairing of mechanical equipment using forming techniques. Repairing worn shafts can be very tricky at sea, as it normally requires the disassembly of equipment and removal of the shaft, usually for workshop repair, where you will most often see a welding and machining back technique. The Belzona paste grade materials are 100% solids and do not change shape during the curing. Therefore, they can be used to rebuild components to fine tolerances by using pre-made formers. This allows for quick and easy application and can be done in situ without the need for disassembling equipment, making this type of technique perfect for at-sea repairs. Another common problem is leaking pipework, which presents unique challenges in the at-sea environment. Due to the restricted space and limited availability of equipment, it is often not possible to carry out thorough surface preparation. Coupled with the often wet and oily conditions, carrying out repairs can be quite difficult. In this case, the leaking pipeline was part of a cooling system, hence the ship was unable to operate at full capacity until the leak was fixed. By utilising Belzona's fast curing repair materials, the leak was arrested in less than 1 hour as a temporary measure. The repair was then overwrapped with Belzona's surface tolerant materials, creating a strong and long-lasting repair with minimal surface preparation, directly onto a water-contaminated surface. So just touching and going a little bit further on with the surface tolerant, we're now going to show a short video showing one of our emergency repair materials.
Okay, cheers for that, Tom. So as you mentioned, we've been talking about surface tolerant materials there. In that case study, it was 1161 in particular, but one of the most versatile materials that we have available is Belzona 1212. So as Tom said, we're going to share a short video with you now. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen and I'll just start the video. Just bear in mind that it could be quite loud, so you might want to adjust your headphones just accordingly for the start of that.
Belzona 1212 is the latest in rapid cure and adhesive technology for your leak repair and sealing needs. It is easy to use with a 1-to-1 volume mix ratio, and it can be applied with regular tools and minimal training. Once prepared, Belzona 1212 is incredibly surface tolerant, giving it the ability to bond with surfaces contaminated by oil or moisture. It can even be applied to underwater surfaces.
With Belzona 1212, many of our clients are quite surprised and amazed with the success when it comes to bonding our product to oily or contaminated surface. That combined with the quick return to service, it certainly creates some smiles on faces.
Belzona 1212 maintains integrity with incredible adhesive strength. Let's put it to the test with 2 tons of chilled iron. These 3-inch steel cylinders are covered in hydraulic fluid. Belzona 1212 is directly applied, and both sides are bonded to each other. Belzona 1212 cures rapidly, capable of light loading in as little as 90 minutes, and full mechanical strength in 150 minutes. This makes it ideal for emergency repairs when you can't afford excess downtime. Will 2 tons be too much for this bond? The bond holds easily. Belzona 1212 is a cost-effective, long-lasting solution for everything from leaking pipes and transformers to damaged chip holes and underwater structures.
And with lots of great features and benefits, it benefits pretty much every industry.
Okay, hopefully that video played okay for everyone, and you can hear us and see us okay as well. So yeah, that video was just, it's quite fun and lighthearted, but it really does convey that Belzona 1212 has a lot of benefits. And as you can see on the screen here, we've listed some of them. It just makes it an ideal material to have on board should maintenance be required. Of course, some of the other products that we've mentioned during the case study section also share these characteristics. 1121 has the fast curing ability, and 1161 has the surface tolerant as well. So you can be safe in the knowledge that an easy to apply, safe solution is available at your fingertips. So I'll now hand you back over to Tom as we move off the ocean and then to our dry dock to look at the type of maintenance that can be required.
Okay, so as mentioned, we'll now take a step away from the at-sea maintenance and focus on Belzona's capabilities for dry dock scenarios. During these planned maintenance periods, all manner of repair and protection can be carried out, from small applications such as bonding fenders to large-scale projects on propulsion and steering equipment. Yet, the high costs associated with being in dry dock mean that there are strict schedules to adhere to, made even more important when also trying to gain approval from classification surveyors. Belzona solutions can be applied quickly and easily, regardless of the size, helping to meet these requirements in a timely manner. Rather than covering everything that can be completed in dry dock, we're going to split this into 2 main sections. The first one being protective coatings, specifically for cavitation and erosion resistance, followed by bonding and shimming applications. So the first example, this impeller duct lining had been significantly deteriorated due to erosion at high flow rates. To dismantle the assembly, replace the urethane lining and reassemble was both costly and time-consuming. Repairing the urethane lining with Belzona 2311 avoided the need for dismantling of the equipment and delivered the repair at a fraction of the cost of the alternative, whilst ensuring long-lasting erosion and cavitation protection. The overall saving, considering all factors, including downtime and labour, was estimated to be around €150,000. It's quite a significant saving there. In this second example, the glass flake lining on the propulsion unit had been irreparably damaged. During inspection, severe cavitation had been noted in specific areas of the bow thruster tunnels. Therefore, Belzona offered a system for not only corrosion and erosion protection, but also a specialised cavitation-resistant coating for the specific areas where cavitation had previously been identified. By doing this, it was possible to offer the optimum protective solution at the best possible cost. 9 years after the initial application, the coating is still in excellent condition. So, moving on from protective coatings, we'll now talk a little bit about bonding and shimming, and we'll start this off with another short video.
Okay, cheers for that, Tom. So, as mentioned, we're just going to share the video. I'll stop sharing the screen and we'll just commence the video.
Okay, so this is showing the injection method for plate bonding and bonding applications. So firstly, we dry fit the doubler plates. Then jacking bolts are installed in all corners, making sure that the plate is level, basically acting as a shim. Next, we want to mask up the area just before mixing one of Belzona's paste grade materials, in this case 1121. As you can see, they're wetting out the edges of the plate and the deck using the scrubbing action. Next, they fill a piping bag to apply a bead of the material around the outer edge of the wetted out deck area. This is going to create a seal around the edge of the plate. So now they lower the plate until the excess product has exuded around the full circumference. And the jacking bolts have bottomed out as well. You can also see in this case they're actually using a Perspex plate as an example just to show how the injection method works. Once the seal has cured, you can install the injection equipment using a splitter block. Now they're going to use one of Belzona's fluid grade materials, in this case 5811, to fill the void. You can attach this to a pump and start the injection process. You'll notice that all the plates have ventilated holes, helping to avoid any air entrapment. Now they're capping off each inspection hole once the product is visible. You can see how it gradually fills up the voids, creating 100% contact between the two surfaces. This provides a complete bond for the deck and plate whilst protecting against corrosion. The injection vent parts are removed and you're left with a long-lasting solution for deck reinforcement. Okay, so hopefully that video gave you an idea of how the injection bonding method works, but just to put that into a little more context, here is an application completed by Belzona's South African distributor just last year. So the rear section of the ship's main deck was very badly damaged by years of corrosion and wear. So a test was done to measure the metal loss. The corrosion was so severe that they initially made plans to cut out and replace the entire deck. But in the end, this was impractical and expensive due to the danger of damaging equipment and objects installed below the deck. Instead, new deck plating could be bonded using Belzona 1111, and the cavity could be filled by injecting Belzona 1321 in between. This provided 100% contact across the whole area. As you can see in the pictures, this was then overcoated with Belzona 5811, an immersion-resistant coating to provide long-term protection. Not only did this satisfy the ship owner, but it was an approved repair by Bureau Veritas. Plus, this method saved the owners at least 20% of the cost associated with cutting out the old deck and replacing it with a new one. And this method was installed in less than 48 hours, so it was also a lot more time effective than the alternative. However, repairing corroded deck areas is not the only use of the injection technique. Another Class Society approved method is to reseat bearings by rebuilding the corroded bearing housing. Normally, this repair would require building up of material on the bearing housing, followed by a precise machining technique, which is both time-consuming and difficult to execute. So, by first positioning and aligning the bearing with jacking bolts and utilizing the Belzona injection method, it's possible to perfectly repair the bearing housing and reseat the bearing in a much more time-effective way. This method also ensures 100% contact between the bearing and the housing, reducing future wear, and prevents crevice corrosion. Okay, so I touched a little bit there on class approvals, and I'll just now hand you back over to Tom to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, cheers for that, Tom. So, as mentioned before with the deck bonding, Bureau Veritas worked really closely with us on that application, and as do many other classification societies across the world. In fact, Belzona has a number of approvals with these agencies as well for various products that we have in our range. Plus, we pride ourselves with working very closely with major marine companies to ensure that we deliver the optimum solution for their maintenance needs. So you can just see a few of these on the screen here that we've worked with in the past. Of course, we've only covered a handful of specific applications, and you might be thinking, where else can Belzona materials be used? Or perhaps assets that I need to maintain haven't been mentioned. Fear not, as a very useful tool that Belzona has at its disposal is our Marine Solution Map. This is an interactive map that examines all the different areas we can potentially help you deliver long-term marine maintenance. So maybe you're in search of information on crane rails or floating hoses. Clicking on each area brings up key information about the problem suffered and then the appropriate Belzona solution. So this is joined by a whole host of information on related products, case studies, and application images just to prove that it's not all talk. These are application areas we are comfortable in providing long-lasting results for. Now, moving from one map to another, Belzona can provide technical support on a global scale. Alongside our head offices, we have a network of over 140 distributors in over 120 countries that offer local service and support where it is required. So if any of the solutions mentioned during this webinar have caught the eye for repairing and protecting your assets, Belzona will be able to assist you wherever you are across the globe. And this is made even easier when you visit belzona.com, our website, where you'll be able to use the Find a Distributor feature and get in touch with your local representative in your country. So that brings us to the end of today's Solve It session webinar, and we'd like to thank you all for watching. We're now going to enter the Q&A section of our webinar, in which we'll answer any of the questions you have. So I'd like to reintroduce Tom and also Henry Smith, Belzona's Engineering Services Supervisor, who will assist with answering these questions. Hello, Henry.
Good morning, guys.
So I'm going to stop sharing the presentation just so you can see their lovely faces and they're a bit better. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask based on the topics we discussed in this webinar, or maybe ones that we haven't covered, in fact? We have had one from Sean saying, what other products can you use for the injection method, both for deck bonding and I guess for reseating the bearing?
Well, it depends entirely on how big the job is, really. For the deck bonding one, you can use paste grade products as well as the fluid grades, but as you saw in the video, it's a bit more setup, but it's a lot easier to get the full coverage on a bigger area if you're using a fluid grade product, because you can set the pump up and have it pump the product straight into where you need it, and there's no need to put any pressure down to squeeze all that excess material out. It's all going to where it needs to be. So you could use 5811, you could use 1321, you could use any fluid grade coating effectively, but what you're looking for is ones that have the most cost-effective materials, but also the easiest ones to pump through a system. You don't want an excessively viscous material because it's going to be more difficult to pump it, which is why 5811 is quite a common material we use for that sort of application.
Okay, hopefully that helps to answer your question a little bit more. We have also been asked about Belzona's anti-fouling properties as well, whether or not they're suitable for instances where that would be required.
Yeah, so first thing to say is that the Belzona materials are not designed as anti-fouling coatings. They are for a separate purpose. And in most cases, they're not going to be used in the areas where the anti-fouling coating is required. So, for example, on the propulsion equipment, you don't necessarily need the anti-fouling properties. They're more designed for the erosion and corrosion mechanism. However, if you do use the Belzona repair materials, for example, in an area where you may need anti-fouling coating, for example, if you wanted to rebuild part of the hull of the ship with the Belzona material below the waterline, then you could overcoat that with another alternative anti-fouling coating, and in most cases it's going to be compatible.
Yeah, there's just to add to that, there's been a couple of cases where we've done repairs to the hull or areas where anti-fouling is required, as Tom said. It could be a paste grade, or it could also be a coating for corrosion protection. Because obviously the anti-foul doesn't provide the corrosion protection; it's just the fouling protection. So yeah, like Tom said, it's you can effectively mix and match the products. So you can use the Belzona for the corrosion, the rebuilding, and then you can use the anti-foul directly on top of that.
Okay, hopefully that helped answer your question. John Paul has a question about deck renovation. Is it possible to deck bond on severely damaged deck with large holes in several areas? Has Belzona done any other work on this other than in South Africa with that instance we mentioned?
Yeah, first of all, we have done other deck bonding applications a number of times, including offshore platforms. Is probably the most common place, but it's also been used a couple of times on ships in the marine industry. Depending on the level of damage, it may be possible to repair a deck with holes in it. However, we would not make any claims that the Belzona solution is giving structural integrity back to the whole area. So it would have to be fundamentally structurally sound for us to apply our solution.
Okay, hopefully that answered your question, John Paul. Does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to ask, or any other information they'd like to hear about? If not, then obviously we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar once this is finished, so probably tomorrow. Yeah, hopefully we've helped to answer any of your questions, and there's a little feedback form at the end as well if you want to just provide any further thoughts or comments or want any more information or details. Okay, well that just leaves us to say thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Solvent Session webinar.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.